So, Red Bull looked to be fastest. Hi guys, it's Fox06 here, and having just watched the qualifying for the Formula 1 2021 Bahrain Grand Prix, here I am just doing a quick video of my reactions as to the big sort of points we can sort of take away from this qualifying session. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to list off what my thoughts were from the sort of everything sort of team by team. So I think I'll do it judging how they finished based on last year. So judging by that, I am going to start off with Mercedes. Mercedes, we were suspicious. We were suspicious, and we sort of worried about whether there was sandbagging or not. But it looks like that it may not have been entirely sandbagging, because Hamilton, I think it was 4/10 off Max Verstappen's pole time, and Hamilton was in P2, Bottas in P3. By no means they're bad times by Mercedes, but they will want to be at the front. So I think the rules of taking out some parts of the floor and the sort of the diffuser have sort of hindered Mercedes, and Red Bull just seem to have adapted around that just so much better. I think in many ways they were prepared to accept P2 or P3, but looking at Q, they would have wanted P1, but unfortunately it's a bit of a disaster. They didn't quite get that. So Red Bull, Max Verstappen, P1. Wow, I think he's just showing that as soon as he hit the track during practice, he's really staked his claim to get onto that P1 seat. P1 on the standings, P1 seat. Not sure what I said there, but hey. So it's P1 for Max. It's the pole time is 4/10 faster than Mercedes, and I think we were looking back over testing. We knew they were going to be confident anyway, but I didn't think the gap would amount to this much. So I don't know whether Hamilton had a problem within his final lap, but still, P1 for Red Bull is exactly what they need. However, P11 did not get out of Q1. I think it looks like on paper that the second driver Red Bull curse seemed to have struck again for Sergio Perez. He would have needed softs to get through to Q3, which I think in many ways is kind of like that second driver curse, but it wasn't a good session for Perez. I've just got to be blunt. It wasn't a good session. I think we all know how good Sergio Perez is on the track. I mean, he's brilliant at looking up through his tyres. He may not be the fastest driver on qualifying, but we know he can be dependable if you throw him to any sort of situation within a car. So for him to not even get through into Q3, he will be kicking himself after that one. And I think it looks on paper like that kind of same story. Max is just dominating in that Red Bull seat, and the second driver looks like they're struggling to play catch up. But then again, it's only the first race. There is so much that's still up in the air about Sergio Perez at Red Bull. So fingers crossed, and this is just a one-off, and he should be able to get out of Q3, get out of Q2 and into Q3 on medium tyres for the foreseeable future. Now for McLaren, for all their talk of being potentially P3 in the standings, P6 and P7, I think they probably wanted a little bit more. I don't think, looking at Charles Leclerc's lap from Ferrari, that was an absolutely outstanding time. And for Ricciardo to out-qualify Norris, I wasn't quite expecting him to do that. I had a feeling that Ricciardo would slowly get the better of Lando Norris within that McLaren, but I didn't expect him to out-qualify him in his first session, so well done to Daniel Ricciardo for that. Throughout the weekend, Lando Norris did look like he was very, very fast. To end up P7 though, I kind of think that he would have wanted a little bit more. But who knows, his practice runs may have been very, very, very good. I mean, P2, I believe, in the FP2 session, it's a very encouraging showing for Lando Norris, and I hope that McLaren, they come out probably as the third fastest team. I really want them to be back up there fighting for titles as they were back in their glory days. But so P6 and P7, I suppose that's an okay result, but it's a little bit disappointing, I think, in the grand scheme of things, given where Aston Martin was were. I mean, you had Lance Stroll, who people have given a lot of flack for not having a lot of qualifying pace, but he got through into Q3. It was a decent effort. I think it was P10 overall. It was just below the Alpine of Fernando Alonso. So it was a decent-ish, I think, from Lance Stroll. But I think Aston were expecting a little bit more to be higher at the front than they could. At least I could say for Sebastian Vettel, who, like Esteban Ocon, incidentally, in the Alpine, he was also caught out by the yellow flag brought out by Nikita Mazepin's spin. And if it had to happen to anybody, it would have happened to happen to good old Sebastian Vettel, wouldn't it? He was in that phase almost like Daniel Ricciardo was back in Red Bull, in that if he didn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have had any luck at all, basically. But P18, he's I suppose the only saving grace he's got fresher set of tyres that he can end up coming back through the field. The rest of from about P11 down, aside from maybe Sergio Perez, there should be easy pickings for Sebastian. I mean, this is a chance to sort of reinvent himself after the absolute nightmare of a season he had last year at Ferrari, only 33 points to his name. I think most people are expecting him to beat Lance Stroll, and this is the kind of race that, if he can flip all the negatives here into a positive, then I think it's a very strong potential. It could be a very strong race from Sebastian Vettel, but to be qualifying like that, I think just poor luck, I think, on his part. Just not particularly good. Moving on to Alpine. So Fernando Alonso, P9, back in on his debut in a car that quite hard to judge, I think, because the Renault team were around, I think they're around the sort of 5th best sort of last year. It looks like, on the most part, they're more staying that way. But Fernando Alonso, we know this is the guy that can take hay and sort of turn it into gold. The same way he could take an absolute bog standard Ferrari in 2012 and make it challenge for a world title against an infinitely superior Red Bull. So for Fernando to get into Q3 and get into P9, I think is quite a decent result. But Esteban Ocon, like Sebastian Vettel, was just caught out by the yellow flags. And as soon as that happens within the qualifying session, like, you're done. So what your intended result is going to be, you're probably going to be about 5/10 off what that's going to be. And that's going to cost you, given how close everything was during this qualifying session, it's going to cost you quite a lot of time in a lot of places as well. So he'll be another, like Sebastian Vettel, who is wanting an excellent recovery drive. And I think if Esteban can get a points finish from that race, I think it's going to be a good reflection on him to see how he can recover as a driver. But I think fair play to Fernando to get up into Q9, to get up into P9 into Q3. So well done, Nando. It's great to have you back, my friend. Ferrari, a hell of a lot more encouraging this time around. Charles Leclerc back upwards the tally as well into P4, which is an immensely encouraging result, given that he only had like 2 or 3 podiums to his name last time. His qualifying in general was very, very good, but to get P4 straight off the bat for the struggling Scuderia, fantastic result. And Carlos Sainz, to get into Q3, I think is an achievement in itself, but he's obviously going to need time to adjust from the McLaren into that Ferrari seat. I think it's the worst kept secret that Ferrari is kind of behind Leclerc, in my opinion. But looking at Carlos Sainz's drive to get P8, I don't think is particularly bad. He's also sharing the front row, sharing the 4th row with his best mate Lando Norris, so I suppose it can't be too bad, right? AlphaTauri. Now, I was looking at Yuki Tsunoda's time in Q1 and thinking, holy shit, this could be something pretty damn special here. They've got a lot of pace in that car. Let's not make any mistake. I think they've got a lot of pace around this circuit with the drivers that they've got. I think Tsunoda he'll be kicking himself and kind of regretting that he didn't go for the soft tyre to get into Q3. If you saw the final round at Sakira at the end of Formula 2, I think Tsunoda finished in P1 in the feature race and then P2 in the sprint race, just showing how consistent the guy can be, and he can and how he can pull out speed and results when they really matter. So Tsunoda, I would say, is P13 first of all. He's a rookie. I wouldn't feel too bad about it because he's got a fast car beneath him. He's got positions. He's got positions to make up, and he's got a car that can easily challenge and get into the points. Pierre Gasly, though, wow, what a performance. To get through to Q3 on medium tyres, the only other people to do that were both Mercedes and Max Verstappen. And for Pierre Gasly to do that in a freaking AlphaTauri, that is impressive. He's going to be dangerous going into that race. And qualifying P5 as well, he is... The only other person in front of him starting on softs is Charles Leclerc. And in Ferrari, which pace is sort of comparable, I think, this is going to be a very interesting one to watch. The Alfa Romeo team, Bit of a quiet session, let's be honest, a bit of a quiet session, but I think they'll both be very, very happy to get into Q2. It looks like Giovinazzi is certainly up there. I think he's sort of edging out Kimi Räikkönen, I think, in pace sort of first of all. It's going to be interesting to see how this year develops, because I imagine this will probably be Kimi's last. I mean, I probably would have said that last year, but I didn't know that he was going to sign for another year, so who knows? He's 41, still going strong, but but to be the Alfa Romeo team, I feel that pace-wise are kind of in a bit of a no man's land, because they don't look like to be with all the other top teams that I've just talked about, but they look to be faster, easily faster than Haas, but just a little bit faster than Williams. So it's kind of a no man's land where they are. I mean, they're pretty much 8th best, I think, and that's it. So to start where they are, I think on the grid is kind of more or less as expected. Now, if only the car runs as good as it looks, then I think they'd be taking pole position every single time, because I can't get over how good looking that Alfa Romeo actually is. Now, Haas, let's be real, they weren't expecting much, were they? But to be effectively lost on the grid now, I think is certainly worrying. Still, Nikita Mazepin, rough around the edges, spinning twice, I think, on his main laps. I don't think he's got fully adjusted to the car yet, but aside from the guy's already tattered reputation, as you've seen for that infamous video, there's still questions sort of raised as to see whether he would have deserved his spot in Formula 1. Like, if you had to give me the choice between choosing, based on Formula 2 performance, between, say, Callum Ilott or Robert Schwartzman, I would have put Robert Schwartzman in there any step of the day. As soon as he got into that Prem, it was extremely fast, and it doesn't look like a case for Nikita Mazepin here. He maybe needs time to adjust. He could be great, or he could turn into someone who come and goes as easily as Sergei Sorokin or something. So moving on to the one that most people want to talk about is Mick Schumacher. This is going to be, I think, probably the best thing actually for Mick Schumacher, is to be in a car where it's a little bit slow but almost out of the spotlight, so he can spend that first year getting himself together. To out-qualify Mazepin is probably the best thing he could have done, because looking down further at the grid, at Williams, they look to have moved forward, albeit by not very much. I mean, they look like to be sort of the 9th fastest team at the moment, so it looks like they've got the potential, I think, to maybe score 1 or 2 points sort of throughout the year, which still feels a bit catastrophic to say about a team like Williams, but hey. Nicholas Latifi, he out-qualified the Aston Martin Vettel. I mean, yeah, he had the flag, but take it or leave it. P17 was a decent sort of showing for him. George Russell, once again, getting into Q2, wrangling absolutely everything out of that Williams car. I think with George Russell, I am running out of ways to say how good of a job that he's doing, because ever since he got into that Mercedes last year in Sakir, and ever since he got into Q2 almost most times last year as well, I think the fans are crying, get that man into a Mercedes already, and more performances like this would just sort of show the fans right. I think it goes to show why they only renewed Lewis Hamilton for another year, which might seem mad in some respects, but Lewis is coming up to, he's 36 years old, and this is a time where the big boys at Mercedes probably think he's getting on a bit now, let's retire him and get a young boy in there like he kind of deserves. But Hamilton's putting in all that success, then I'll say, if it ain't broke, obviously don't change it. But for George Russell to once again be absolutely on the money in that Williams car, I mean, I'm hoping he might nip at the heels of Q3 by the season at some point, but it just depends on how they can develop the Williams car. Haas have basically written the season off, I think, in preparation for next year. But yeah, I think it's a decent show from George Russell, and hopefully Williams can get 1 or 2 points in the next session. So there we have it. That's my quick sort of roundup of the session. I think it was a very interesting one. I think some shocks in some ways, but I just love how close everything has sort of gotten with. It feels like the tiniest rule change, almost like 2012, where they got rid of the blown diffusers and they kind of said, and then everybody was just kind of come back together, and it actually became one of the best seasons in Formula One. So hopefully this season will be something along those lines. I mean, of course, as a Brit, I want to see Lewis Hamilton do the impossible and get an 8th world title, but. For the fans' perspective, if the top 6 or 7 teams are as close as they are to were in Q1, then I think we could be in for a great season. I think it's definitely been worth the wait, and let's hope, fingers crossed, that COVID doesn't bugger anything up. So there we go. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, then please leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below on what your thoughts were in the qualifying session. I'm hoping to get round to, after the league race tomorrow, to record a sort of react sort of video around the race. So hoping, if you like this, I hope you will tune into that one. So thank you all very much for watching, and if you like this, I will see you guys on the next video. Thank you all so much for watching. Goodbye.